Hi Kiba folks, this is Pete58, and this video I wanted to do for a long time. It's about horror movies and the day of the week, Saturday. Now, some people, when they enjoy something, if it's horror movies, they might have a certain other memory that comes together with it. Maybe it's like, a particular food, like a snack food, popcorn, whatever. Uh, for me, Saturday. Whenever I think of horror movies, I always think of Saturday, the seventh day of the week. Now, the reason why is because Saturday, uh, whenever I think back on it, the first time I've seen a lot of horror movies was on a Saturday, and a lot of them wound up being favorites or ones that I really enjoyed, but or maybe some people haven't seen or even heard of. And I just wanted to talk about that because I don't know. It's just the magic I feel when I think back to those Saturday mornings and afternoons, seeing some of these horror movies. Uh, it just, it fills me with joy, and I don't know. Uh, I guess I had to get this out of me. The way like I said, I always seen horror movies was on Saturdays. Usually, when I would get up as a kid, it would be right around 10 o'clock in the morning, and it would be to watch Mystery Science Theater 3000. Now, they didn't always show horror movies, but when they did, it was a big treat, because I love horror movies, and I even like bad movies, and I really like bad horror movies. Now, not everything they saw was complete, or everything I saw on the show was complete garbage, like Bird Eye Gordon pictures. They would show stuff like Tormented or Earth versus the Spider. Those were good Burt I. Gordon movies. They were the typical, I guess, horror movies of the 50s. Something huge, like in Earth versus the Spider. A giant spider obviously would kill people. Uh, I love that movie. The first time I saw it was on MST3K, and I really enjoyed the movie. Another one was Tormented. That's another Burt I. Gordon picture, but there was no giant animal or insect or spider trying to kill everybody. It was about a jazz musician being haunted by the ghost of his lover, a woman he let fall to her death. And it's from the 50s or possibly like the early 60s, and some people might consider it corny, but I thought it was a really creepy horror movie. I thought it was pretty good, and I just really enjoyed it. Another one I had seen on MST3K was an early episode called The Crawling Hand. Peter Beck and Alan Hale Jr., the skipper from Gilligan's Island, was in it. That was probably more on the corny side of horror movies of the 50s. It's obviously about a pilot who crashes from his space shuttle, I believe, and I haven't seen the movie in a while, and his hand comes to life and starts choking people. Now, some of these horror movies aren't, some people might not consider them horror. I do, because they fall into that category, and I associate them with the horror movies. Giant insects eating people, ghosts tormenting their murderers, appendages coming to life and killing people. So those were some of the oldest and more obscure horror movies I'd seen was watching MST3K. And I know I love MST3K, and they are known for showing bad movies. Like I said, some of them weren't that bad, especially the Burt I. Gordon ones. If I could recommend any of them, it would be Tormented. That's the one it's about a ghost, not about something big animal trying to eat people. It's a ghost story, and I think it's really good. The blind lady that is in the movie. She tells a very creepy story about a boy drowning. That scene alone, I thought was pretty good. If you gotta watch any of these movies without the riffs from the bots and the host, Tormented would be my number one. I like Manos, The Hands of Fate as well, another movie found on MST3K, but that's not everybody's cup of tea. But I liked Manos. That's one of my favorite films. I can watch it with or without the riffs. But would I recommend it? Well, I mean, if you want to try something once, if you're the type of person that'll try raw fish or something like sushi, maybe you should try Manos. Now, that was usually early in the morning, and, a lot of these movies, unfortunately, they were old, so there was no good gory stuff. So, if you're into that kind of thing, you're going to be disappointed. I mean, they're just black and white 50s pictures. Some of the Berti Gordon ones were in color later on, but they're from the 50s and the 60s. Some of these movies, so you're not going to get like out and out gratuitous violence. If you've ever seen a movie made before 1965, I think you'll know what I mean. But like I said, anything by Berti Gordon is a good movie to try. If you want to see how horror movies were done back in the day. Now, usually after this, the movie on MST3K was over, I still wanted my horror fix. Now, I grew up in Philadelphia, South Philadelphia to be precise, and there was a couple of local channels, obviously, and two of my favorite. One was Philly 57, and the other was Fox 29. I'd seen a lot of my favorites and a lot of obscure ones on both of these channels. The first time I saw the It miniseries, I didn't see it when it originally aired back in 1990. I didn't catch it till like a year or so later, and that was on Philly 57. They showed both parts back to back at noon, and then the part 2 at 2 o'clock. I got to see that, and that first time I saw that, I was kind of freaked out. The scene with the skeleton coming out and trying to grab Ben Hanscom. I remember that particularly scared me. I remember getting a jump in my heart when I saw that. And another favorite of mine that I saw was Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I liked that the most out of all of them. I didn't see them in order. I saw part 3 and 4 first, and then I saw part 2 sometime after I'd seen like 1, 3, and 4, and 5. And to me, I really enjoyed that. That was my favorite one. I think it's, I think it's because it's the first time you really see him, Freddy Krueger, meaning, really come into the real world and just start, kicking people's ass. If you, towards the end of the movie, when he takes over the kid's body, spoiler alert, he starts killing people with his claw, and it was just great, And I remember being particularly impressed by that one more than any of the other ones, even the first one. And the first one was good, but the second one, that's my favorite. It's always been my favorite, Nightmare on Elm Street. Another horror movie I saw it sucks. It's Children of the Corn, the original Children of the Corn. It's a very lame movie. I remember watching the beginning of it when I was about 10 or 12 years old. I think it was on Philly 57 they were showing it. And the first, I guess, 20 minutes, it seemed okay. I was getting into it. And after that, it kind of seemed lame in a way I couldn't describe at the time because I was still too young to appreciate it. Or not appreciate it, I guess. And it was just, I remember it being very corny and having like I don't know, kind of just lameness to it. It's something that they probably could have watched on MST3K. But I still enjoyed it, I mean, any horror movie is, at that time for me, were enjoyable. We had cable at my house, but sometimes they didn't, show the good horror movies until like after 10 o'clock at night. So you were basically, if you were a kid in the middle of the afternoon in the late 80s or early 90s, your best chance to see a horror movie, although heavily edited, would be probably in the afternoon watching local TV affiliates, like Fox 29. Fox 29, they showed they showed about the same caliber of movies, but occasionally they would show really obscure ones. The first time I saw Carrie and The Gate was on Fox 29. They came on a Saturday afternoon, and I remember watching them. I think they might have even come on one after the other. Sometimes they would, they'd just show movies all afternoon if there was no Phillies playing or whatever. Because usually they would show local sports games, but, sometimes they would get blacked out or they would show something else. And so I'd seen a lot of good movies on Fox 29, but I also seen a lot of very obscure ones. Two I have to name off right at the top of my head is Devil Dog. That was, I guess it was a made-for-TV movie. It was part of the '70s exploitation rage of like demons and devils possessing people. It came out in the later '70s, but it was just part of that trend of stuff like The Exorcist and Christine. Cars and animals and little girls getting possessed by the devil. And this one was called Devil Dog, and it was about a family. They adopt a dog, and it gets possessed by either the devil or a demon. Whatever. Take your pick. It was one of the more obscure ones. It's I have a hard time finding it for trailers or anything. I mean, you can look on YouTube and probably find one really quick, but it's just one of those ones that just that wasn't very big at the time. It was just a made-for-TV. It was like almost like an exploitation film. Now, another obscure movie, I'd only seen this once. I just found it again on YouTube. Somebody uploaded the whole thing. It stars Nichelle Nichols from Star Trek. It's called The Supernaturals. I remember the first time I saw this movie, I thought it was like a Romero movie because I got that impression. In the movie, it's a bunch of soldiers in the South. Now, it's the '80s, 1980s, so they're modern as you can get, and they go down south for whatever I can't remember, and they're on some kind of training, and they come to this place where a battle in the Civil War was fought, and they begin to get attacked by the ghosts of Confederate soldiers, I believe. I think they were zombies. Like I said, I haven't seen this movie in over 20 years. I was probably still a kid when I saw it the first time. I'm pretty sure I was like 10 or 12 because I was kind of like confused by the movie a little. I wasn't sure if they were getting attacked by zombies or ghosts, but it was a really creepy movie. The atmosphere of it was just kind of like, I remember being thick, and I remember the movie, it was dark and it was foggy, and it was just one of those movies that, even though it was obscure and probably not very popular, it always stuck with me. And it wasn't because of Nichelle Nichols. I wasn't the biggest Star Trek fan as a kid, but I just remember her being in it, and I remember watching it and kind of getting freaked out by some of the scenes in that movie. Even though it was on Fox 29, they had to cut stuff out. It still felt pretty creepy to me. And like I said, usually when I was very young, like before I was like 13 or 14, I could stay up later. These were the closest I could get to seeing actual horror movies. But like I said, they were on local affiliates, so they would cut out all the good stuff. And up until I was in my younger years, that was the most exposure I'd had to horror movies. Now, as I got older and I was, allowed to watch whatever I want, I started watching the movie channel. My parents, we had cable, and that was one of the channels they had gotten. They had gotten the movie channel and HBO. And once I was old enough, I got to finally see horror movies, and real good kick-ass horror movies, especially on the movie channel because they didn't edit them. Now, I would usually watch Joe Bob Briggs Drive-In. That's when he was on the movie channel. He would only come on at the beginning and the very end of the movie when the credits were rolling. He would talk then. But I remember watching Night of the Living Dead, the remake, for the first time on the movie channel, and he was hosting it. Bride of Reanimator and Phantasm 2. Those are still my three of like top favorite movies. And the first time I saw them, they were being hosted by Joe Bob Briggs. But like I said, it was the movie channel, so there was no commercials. So he would talk for like 5 or 10 minutes before the movie, and then another 5 or 10 minutes after, and then he would tell you all kinds of cool stuff, which is probably why I enjoyed Joe Bob Briggs more on Monster Vision. That was on TNT, one of the Turner networks. Now, it was cable, but they were still commercials, and they still had to cut out a lot of stuff. But I that was fine by me because I enjoyed the more often commentary of Joe Bob Briggs. He would tell you all kinds of cool stuff about these movies, and he would give commentary every time there was a commercial break. Like most of the time, sometimes it would go right back to the movie, but generally it would go to him, and he would be like, I guess he was watching it along because he knew where the commercial breaks were coming in. So unless he knew that ahead of time, I don't know. But it was pretty cool because he still did the mail girl. Usually had some good looking woman come in with a mail bag, and he'd read off letters, usually from people in prison. That was always hilarious. Some of the other first movies I saw were Sleepwalkers, People Under the Stairs. Excellent, excellent movies. They were on TNT by the time I saw them, so stuff got cut out. But it just made me want to see them more uncut later. If they ever came on HBO or the movie channel without Joe Bob hosting, I would watch them. Because some of these movies I would get an introduction to through him or through these local affiliates that even though they got a lot of stuff cut out, a lot of the better scenes or the swears or whatever, it would just make me want to watch it more. So it wasn't like a spoiler alert to know the ending. If I saw something like Night of the Living Dead on, TNT instead of the movie channel. If I had, I just would have wanted to see the uncut version even more. I know some people are kind of like, oh, I don't know, but it's like, hey, it just made me want to see the uncut stuff more. I saw, I think it might have been Hellraiser, amazingly enough, on Philly 57. It came on real late one night, but it was Hellraiser, and they had to cut stuff out. So it was like, or it was Hellraiser 2. I think it was part 2. And they were showing it like on a Saturday night on either Philly 57 or maybe even PHL 17. That was another local affiliate. They would sometimes show horror movies. But at least I got to watch it. It was really cut to pieces, but hey, what are you gonna do? I mean, sometimes when you're under the age of 12 and you want to see some good horror movies, sometimes that's your only way to do it. It just you can't have it both ways when you're that age. But by the time I was like 15 or 16, I was getting to watch whatever I wanted as far as horror movies went. And, like I said, I still remember the first time I seen most of these movies, and it was Saturday every time. Saturday. And whenever I think back to just horror movies in general, I think of the day Saturday. A lot of magic when I think about horror movies. You see like other people, they might talk about seeing movies in a theater, and they got that nostalgia feeling for the smell of the fake butter on popcorn, or the way the lights dimmed. Me, it's the opposite. It's me, sitting on a couch, watching it either in my basement or in my bedroom, watching these horror movies for the first time, and just getting blown away by them, even though some of them were like edited down. You might get lucky, extraordinarily lucky, to see something like on PBS. Now in Philly on PBS, I saw probably one of the best horror movies of the '80s, Poltergeist. And the thing with the PBS in Philly is, whenever they showed a horror movie, they didn't cut stuff out. I mean, the swears, the disgusting parts, they left it in there, and it's public broadcast, and I couldn't believe it when I was a kid, but by the time I was an adult, I was used to that kind of thing. But yeah, the first time I saw Poltergeist, that was on PBS, and that was on a Saturday night as well. That's sometimes you get lucky when you grow up in a place like Philly. You get a really, really good channels to watch, and some of them, they'll have all these kinds of crazy movies, some obscure, some bad but in a good way. If you have cable, you get to catch stuff like MST3K and Joe Bob Briggs. And that's why whenever I think of horror movies, I always think of Saturday, because all of my favorites I saw on a Saturday, whether in the morning, afternoon, night, or late at night. It it was always on a Saturday when I discovered a lot of these movies for the first time. Well, that's all I wanted to say. That's just something that it's a feeling I've always had, and I always wanted to share with people. And I don't know. Comment below and tell me about some of the magic you have when it comes to horror movies and stuff like that. Please spin dash that like and sub button. And as always, hi Kiba.